How are you doing? What questions can I answer for you all? Looks like a couple come in. So my first cool trick, hopefully this works. If I click on this, hopefully y'all can see that question. So do you think in 10 years, or how long do you think AI will be able to develop an enterprise product? How does a programmer do it? So I think you're asking like how long essentially do I think until AI is able to essentially do what like software engineers are doing? And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, if even ever. I think what's more happening is just that AI is a tool that is causing sort of another layer of abstraction on software engineering. So if you think back to the early days of programming, it happened on literal punch cards and like assembly languages and Fortran, things like that. And then eventually we added abstractions with things like C and C++. And then we added more abstractions with things like Python and JavaScript. And each of these layers of abstractions caused programming to get easier, and it caused us to be able to build more things quicker. But none of these meant that like we were being replaced by these tools. All they meant was we were able to build more stuff because we have more tools to build those things quicker and to focus on more of the things that matter ourselves and let the tools do sort of the like less interesting work. And I think that's sort of the same thing with AI. Like, I don't think we're going to have AI building any massive enterprise applications for us anytime soon, but we can use it to sort of be more efficient. Is full stack web development, Django development still a hot topic? I mean, yes, absolutely. Like every company in the world essentially has a website. So full stack development still very important for literally all of them. Django specifically, I don't know that I'd call it a hot topic. Like it's not the most important thing in the world right now, but it's definitely still being used. So I don't know. Django's not like the end all be all. It's not something that like everybody's using, but it's a good tool and there's plenty of people using it. Audio's all good. Appreciate it. I need I need a neural link in my Python. That is a comment. What are your views on Pygame? Honestly, I don't really. I assume that's a way to make games using Python. Honestly, I don't really know much about it or what it is. So I have no views on it whatsoever. When you were learning data structures and algorithms, did you notice any significant jumps/growth in your understanding? If so, what did you attribute to those jumps in understanding? I don't know that like there were like individual moments where it's like some big jump, but I will say there's definitely a like level of you like have aha moments where you start to understand certain things. I can't necessarily like pinpoint individual ones, but there's definitely like aha moments you have along the way. And I don't know like exactly what like to attribute to those, if that makes sense though. Not a great answer, but yeah. Flutter or KMP 2024? I don't know what KMP is, so I'm not the right person to answer that. Is the tech job market still good? I mean, good is subjective. Is it as good as it was at the peak of the pandemic in 2021? No, absolutely not. Is it better than it was in 1970? Yeah, absolutely. There was virtually no tech market in 1970, right? So it's subjective. I would say it's good in some sense, but if you're just generally meaning like the sentiment of the market, right now, I think for mid-level and senior engineers, it's pretty standard. It's not that difficult to find new jobs at that level right now, but for more entry-level positions, it is a lot harder right now, but hopefully things recover more. Will Rust ever replace JavaScript? No, they're kind of in different lanes, sort of solving different problems. Have you ever messed with DigitalOcean? I have not. Let's see. What language would you say is the best to focus on early in your career? I think it depends on what you're interested in. If you want to do web development, JavaScript. If you want to do like something more like backend oriented, it could be Python, it could be Java, it could be Rust, it could be C++. Like it just depends on what exactly it is that you're interested in. But most of the concepts from one language sort of apply to the others. Criticize the Mern stack? Nah, Mern's chill. How did you get started? So for me, I started software engineering or like programming, I guess, in essentially, well, the like very earliest form of programming I tried to do was like middle school robotics, but I don't know if that really counts. We're talking like Lego Mindstorms type of stuff, so like drag and drop programming for like Lego robotics. And then in high school, I took AP computer science, and then I went to the University of Washington and obviously like took a lot of computer science classes there. And then I guess like how I actually got my first jobs was I was a teaching assistant in college for a web development class, and then I did internships at Facebook and Lyft, and then I worked full time at Facebook after that, and then now we're here, years later. I don't know much about cybersecurity, so I can't really answer that, Atlas. What's your day look like nowadays? Honestly, it's different day to day. Some days I'm like head down coding all day. Other days I'm making YouTube videos all day. Other days I'm doing completely different stuff. Like today, most of my day was actually just spent writing emails, which not super fun, but you got to do what you got to do. So it just depends on the day. That's not what I meant to click on, but I'll go for it anyways. Is Java a good language to learn? Yeah, I mean, if it's interesting to you, it was my first language. Best tech stack to learn for entry level right now? I mean, it just depends on what exactly you want to do. But generally speaking, I think JavaScript and Python are the two like easiest languages to learn that are also applicable in the industry. But it depends on what you're interested in. But I guess you could say like the MERN stack is probably the most common right now if that's purely what you're looking for. Is it worth programming in C++? If it's interesting to you, of course. And if you're just trying to get like a deeper grasp of software engineering and computer science, I think it's also really good for that, to teach things like manual memory allocation and sort of just like how pointers work and things like that. Will AI render coders obsolete? No. We've had time and time again where there have been new waves of technology that we've been able to look at going in and be like, wow, this is going to essentially wipe out coders. It's going to make everything so much faster to build that we don't need them at all. And none of those things have resulted in that. We had all of these different layers of abstraction we've added through programming languages getting way easier to use and tools that do a lot of things for you. And none of them replaced software engineers. All they did was change a bit of the work software engineers were doing and make that work more efficient, so that instead of spending all of their time on things that could be automated away, they spend their time on more important things, and we can build more products. And when you can build more products faster, it actually makes it more cost effective to build products. So products that prior to that would have been impossible for tech companies to build because it just wasn't financially feasible, become financially feasible when we have things like AI that can make us more productive. So all I think is going to happen is AI is another tool that just makes developers more productive. I've done that rant twice now, so we'll probably skip that question for a little bit. Obviously, I want to be in both, but for junior/entry front-end roles, being able to solve questions on front-end expert would help me in interviews more than algo expert, or algo's better in interview. It just depends on where exactly you're applying. So if you're applying to front-end roles at like smaller tech companies, like startups and stuff, I would imagine you probably get more front-end specific questions. If you're applying to like front-end roles at Google and Facebook and companies like that, you'll probably get a mix. So they're both going to be important. You'll probably get one or two front-end questions and one or two like traditional algorithm questions. So unfortunately, the answer is for front-end developers, usually you just have to study both. Sometimes the bar is a bit lower though for the algorithm questions. All right, let's see. Kind of behind. I'm gonna like speed through these real quick and then we'll get caught up. When following along tutorials, I understand everything, but after 2 to 3 weeks, I find myself to look back at that tutorial, figure out how I implemented that specific feature. Is this normal? Yeah, it is. And the more you do things, the more you retain. So whenever you learn a new thing, or say you learn 10 new things, only expect to remember a few of those 10 things. So that's why it's important to sort of see things over and over again, rather than to try to learn them one time. Like you learn things by doing them over and over again, because each time you retain new information. Can I study software engineering at the same time I have a job? I mean, sure. I don't see why not. React versus Rust, just completely unrelated things. React is front end, Rust is for the most part back end. Is it worth starting learning programming in high school? If it's interesting to you, then of course. Is it still easy to find work abroad to promote traveling, or do you generally have to stay in one place? I don't know. I've never tried to work abroad. I would imagine it's difficult, but I think it's always been difficult. I'm 43, don't want to work in tech. Is it too late to become a full stack web dev? So I'm a little confused by don't want to work in tech, but want to be a full stack web dev. That seems to be conflicting. You mean you want to be a full stack web dev, like not at a tech company? In which case, like if you have the time to devote to learning the skills, like it's never too late to learn a new skill, right? But you also have to recognize you probably are in a very different life position than somebody who's 18 and just coming out of high school and looking to learn at a coding boot camp or in college or whatever, and sort of weigh those, like if it's worth it for you, right? Like, so yeah, is it possible? Sure. Is it like the best thing for you? I don't know. Only you can answer that. What's up with the camera? I don't know. What's up with it? Is something wrong with it? Let me know if there's something wrong with the camera. It looks fine on my end, but all right. Let's see. How to become a front-end developer? What languages are required? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, probably React or Angular or something like that. When will you have a raffle for Connor mentorship? If only. I used to do like these like mentorship things on the side, but it's just too much. There's one of me and too many of y'all at this point to where I can't really do it anymore. Best place to learn coding? Honestly, I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that because I don't like promoting other people's courses and things, but YouTube courses, universities, obviously, coding boot camps. What recent technologies or tools have you found particularly interesting in or useful in your work? I don't know. I mean, I tend to not use many like new fancy technologies. I just tend to use the things that are proven to work. Like it's fun to play around with these new things, right? Like a lot of people have been talking about Gleam recently, which is cool. But ultimately, it's more important to just like build things, and we know ways to build things that work. So I tend to be a little bit change resistant in that way. Like what I'm working on now, I'm using React, I'm using Next.js, I'm using PostgreSQL, like very simple stack. Should I start with JavaScript or Python? Whatever is more interesting to you. If you want to do like web development, JavaScript. If you want to do like stuff with data, maybe some more backend development, maybe Python. So clarification, I'm not employed in tech. Can I move into full stack web dev? I mean, kind of same answer I gave before. Is it possible? Yes. Would I recommend it for you specifically? I don't know. That's for you to decide on if it's worth the time commitment and all that. Is it good to be a full stack developer? If you enjoy it, it's good. Software engineering versus data science, they're just different roles, right? Software engineers are building stuff. Data scientists are, I guess, building stuff in a way, but they're looking into what is effective, what's not. So they work closely together. Like oftentimes engineers build something, data scientists analyze that something to see if it's actually effective, to see if people like it, to see if it's moving, whatever key indicators you have, whatever metrics you have, and they work together to figure out what's working, what's not working, and how to ultimately build better stuff. Can you recommend a roadmap? Yeah, go to my YouTube channel and I have a video that's like how I would become a full stack developer or something like that. It's like, I think my second most viewed video. So also just like sort by views and you can do it that way. And it's a pretty good roadmap, I think. A decent amount of people seem to have gone through it and enjoyed it. Will most companies only expect us to use React, or will we be forced to use vanilla JS? I don't know of any companies using vanilla JavaScript. It's like very unlikely that that would be the case. It's just an inefficient way to work for most production software or most production like websites. How useful is AI to a developer as a tool? Some people love it and find it super useful and use it all the time. Other people are like, this is useless. It's just giving me bad information. I think it falls somewhere in between. I use it sort of like Stack Overflow. So like if I have a question, I'll ask it to AI usually before I Google it, but it's not like the most important thing. Like if AI didn't exist, I don't think I'd be that much less productive. Do you code in JavaScript or Python for coding interviews? So most of my coding interviews I've actually done in Java just because the last time I was going through coding interviews was like as a new grad essentially. And at that time, Java was the language I knew best. Um, I've done a few in Python and a few in JavaScript, but Java was what I did most of my data structures interviews in. If I did them now, I'd probably use JavaScript, I think. Maybe Python. I don't know. I think it would depend on what I'd expect to be asked, but most likely I'd probably use JavaScript just because I know it best. Best advice for early computer science majors? Go to office hours a lot. Like even if you don't have questions, just go and make connections with your professors and your teaching assistants and go and listen and learn new things. Work on projects as much as you can. Take data structures and algorithms as early as possible so that you're more prepared for like coding interviews and stuff like that. Try not to take too many coding classes at the same time, especially ones using different languages. It just like completely messes with your brain. Yeah. And have fun a little bit. Don't overly stress about it. Don't expect that you're going to have like 17 internships by the time you graduate. You probably won't. Like, take life one step at a time. You know, I know, do development in pizza lang. I have no idea what that means, but I'm here for it. I'm from India. I graduate 2022 from arts background, decided to be a software developer, learning to code after my graduation. It's been 2 years. I've built a chat app. Will I get a job? I have no idea. I cannot predict if you will get a job. I cannot give you a job. So hopefully, good luck. All right, I'm going to try to catch up. Let's hide that. Let's see. Is coding a young man game? I'm 42 and looking to change careers. I've been in sales for years and interested in software dev and engineering. This is a different person than the last person who asked this, right? Wasn't the other person 42? Either way, if you want, is it possible to change careers into software engineering at 42? Sure. Is it something I'd recommend? I don't know. It's going to depend on your life situation, right? Like it's a big commitment to go learn that skill and essentially start a new career. And it's up to you to decide, is that worth it this current stage in your life? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but just like recognize you're not going to be able to just like show up and get the job. Like it's going to be probably a couple years of learning and then starting out essentially a new career from the beginning, right? How to stay up to date with the tech industry? Pay attention to blog posts, pay attention to like Twitter and YouTube and things like that. And also just like be building stuff. And as you build stuff, you'll naturally be encountering new things. And yeah, there's also, I've done sponsorships with them. So I guess I'm giving them an extra free sponsorship, but just disclaimer, I do have a relationship with the company, not being paid to say this, but daily.dev is a cool website that I've been using that essentially just gives you like a customized feed of different like posts to view every day. Do you feel like the industry is pushing a narrative that you have to be a full stack developer to get a higher chance of being hired or noticed? I feel like it takes a while to get good at just one. I don't think so. Maybe a little bit, but I think people maybe push this narrative, but I don't think the companies do. Like, I don't think this is actually the reality of things. I think it might be the sentiment people have. But no, there are plenty of jobs that are just front end or just back end or just whatever. Knowing both is good because it means that there's more jobs you can apply to, but there are certainly jobs that are just front end or just back end. Thoughts about remote jobs? I love remote jobs, especially for like mid-level and beyond. I think there's a lot of value when you're early on and having hands-on experience with other people and having people around you, it's just easier to ask questions when people are right next to you. But just like logistically, you save so much time not commuting to an office every day. Like it's just better if you can do it. I'm a big fan of remote work, or like partially remote work, whatever they call it, hybrid. Math is important in programming? Not really. It's important for a computer science degree, but the vast majority of software engineers are not using math on like a daily basis. Will Clement come back to YouTube? That's a good question. We got to get Clement back on YouTube. All right. What's the game plan? What do we do to get Clement back on YouTube? We got to collectively, a whole 29 of us, 30 of us, band together to get Clement back on YouTube. I'm sure he will eventually. I have a business with a lot of clients and I'm learning front end. Will this experience help in the interview process? Maybe a little bit. Maybe for like startups. For like a big tech company, honestly, they probably don't care very much. Maybe a little bit. I guess it depends on what that business is. Data structures and algorithms, grinding tips. I think the biggest thing is just like, don't just try to do as many problems as possible. Do things with an actual purpose. So as you're doing problems, actually make sure you're understanding things. When you get things wrong, come back a few days later to make sure that you actually understood it and retained that information. If you could change one thing you did early in your career, what would it be? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll think about it. Have you seen Devin's software engineering AI? I don't know what that is. How do you balance trade-offs between delivering features quickly and ensuring code quality and maintainability? I think it just matters on the individual level of what you're building and recognizing like how important these different things are and having those conversations proactively with management and with clients and whoever it might be to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what it is you're prioritizing. And having a good communication channel with your management to be able to say like, hey, I'm not moving slowly, I'm moving methodically, right? Like, no, I'm not going super slowly. These are all of the things I've done to make sure that this project is going to succeed long term. Because oftentimes I think people feel like they have to move as quickly as possible because that's how they're going to get as much recognition as possible. But if you're proactive in reaching out to your management and explaining the steps you're taking and what it is you're actually doing, I think oftentimes you can be rewarded well for that also. It just depends on what exactly it is you're building. All right, we're way behind, so I'm just going to go to the newest questions. And if I skipped your question and it was cool and important, I guess ask it again. Would you love to work with Google one day? I don't know. I'm 1-1 with Google. So the first time I applied to Google, I got an offer. I turned it down. Second time I applied to Google, I didn't get an offer. So we're like even right now. So I feel like maybe we need a tiebreaker, right? Like I need to apply again to see which one of us turns each other down. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not like dying to work at Google, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Although they use Angular, and ooh, that sounds kind of rough. I've been subscribed for a while. Thanks for being a good resource, especially for providing us with live streams for questions. Hey, appreciate it. Glad you like the content, and good reminder to everybody who's here to make sure to subscribe. Devin is an AI software engineer. I don't know what that really means, but I haven't used it, so I don't have any opinion on it. Best Python course? I don't know. I don't like recommending other people's courses because, frankly, I haven't gone through them. Let's see. How do I don't know. All right. Pros and cons, technical support. Here, we'll put this up here. Pros and cons, technical support, sales, engineering versus software engineering. What AWS certifications would you recommend having? Ideally, the most commonly used. Okay, so I can't give you like pros and cons of different jobs because the only one I've had is being a software engineer. But what I will say is on certificates. I think certificates as a concept are something that are super overrated, and people treat them like Pokemon where they got to catch them all and find as many certificates as possible and feel as overqualified as possible. But honestly, it just doesn't really matter. What matters is having skills to do jobs. And if those skills are learned through certificate programs, great, go through those certificate programs. But just like doing things for the purpose of collecting certificates, waste of time, in my opinion. There's probably a few exceptions. There's probably like specific roles that need certain like certifications. But if you're just trying to be a software engineer, nobody cares about your certificate you got on Udemy or whoever. Like it just doesn't matter all that much. So yeah, don't over emphasize certificates, but by all means, learn new skills. And we have, I don't understand how YouTube Live works at all, but our viewers shut up a good amount when I was ranting about certificates. So for all you new people who hopefully also our team don't over collect certificates, make sure to hit that subscribe button while you're here for 10 seconds. All right. What level of math do you feel like is the bare minimum to effectively understand the math concepts and proofs used in Algo Expert or needed to pass algorithms at FANG interviews? Yeah, so you don't need math really at all. So you need to know what a logarithm is, which if you don't know what it is, you can probably learn what a logarithm is in like less than 20 minutes. You probably need to know like exponents. Like we're talking like middle school math. Like you don't need like calculus or any of that. When you worked at Facebook, what is something you did to ensure a good performance review / raise? Ooh, this is a good question. I think by far the most important thing for getting good performance reviews and good raises is not necessarily how much stuff you did that matters. It's not necessarily how good of a programmer you are and how clean your code was. Those things matter, but the most important thing and what they're actually grading on is what they call impact. And impact is a lot of things, right? Like it's, have you moved metrics? Have you accomplished goals? But that is vague, right? So what actually matters is not necessarily the truth of the impact, but your ability to convey that impact. So I think by far actually the most important thing is proactively talking to your manager and being like, hey, what are the most impactful things I can be doing? So that way at the end of the quarter or the end of the half, you can look back and say, hey, those things you said are super impactful, I did them. And here's how I went above and beyond on doing them. And here's how I had extra impact beyond that. And I think having those like proactive conversations ahead of time are super important, and like setting expectations for yourself, like literally going to your manager and being like, hey, I want to reach like the exceeds expectations level this half, or I want to get promoted this half. What are the steps you think I need to take? That way, when they're in that meeting at the end of the half to decide who to promote, to decide what review like level thing to give you, they're looking back and saying, wait, he asked me to get a promotion and he did all of the things I said he needs to do to get promoted. Now I have to promote him, right? So I think oftentimes that's more important than the actual like technical things you did, is just your ability to communicate on those things. So what matters if certificates are not actually needed? The only like piece of paper I think that holds much weight is, how do I do this? Pointing on cameras are there, those guys. I think a degree matters if you have one. I think a coding bootcamp can hold a little bit of weight, but not a ton. But more than anything, what matters is being good at coding interviews, having a good resume, having good projects if you don't have other work experience, and just having good skills. If those skills come through certificate programs, that's great, but it's much less about the pieces of paper and much more about the actual skill sets. What programming language is in the most demand right now? So, I mean, I wouldn't like learn things based on what's in the most demand, or like apply to jobs just based on what's in the most demand. Technically speaking, JavaScript is the most used language in the world, and it's not close. The reason for that is mostly the web. The entire internet runs on JavaScript, so JavaScript's used a lot. But does that mean you should learn JavaScript? If you're interested in web development, sure. But if you're interested in mobile development, probably not, right? Like just learning the things that are actually interesting to you. Can you recommend books to learn how to code? I'm not really a learn through books kind of guy, so probably not, to be honest. Like I don't know that I've had a book I've read and been like, oh yeah, I learned how to code now. Like I love books. Like I love reading. I love learning things through books. But I don't think technical skills are best learned in books most of the time. At least the way I personally learn, which makes it hard for me to recommend them. Skills needed for AR and VR? Honestly, I don't know. I've never done much of it. Programming languages for hacking and pen testing? Again, I don't really know because I haven't done a lot of it. I would imagine a lot of like C, C++, but I don't know. It's just purely a guess. Advice for college computer science students you wish you had? Go to office hours a lot. I never went early on. I started going eventually, but early on I didn't go much, and I think it's super important. Number two, I would say, is work on projects. Try to like do things outside of class, whether it be hackathons or whether it be just like side projects. I think those are how you build a lot of real skills beyond just like academic skills. Try to build real connections with people, because the people around you are going to be people who will be founders of companies. There'll be people who will be managers. There'll be just like people who can give you referrals, right? Like the people around you are super important towards your like long-term journey. So build good relationships with them. Have fun. Don't stress too much. Take data structures and algorithms as early as you're allowed to. Study for coding interviews as early as you can, even if you're not applying to jobs. Just like get good at it. Hope that's helpful. All right, we've been asked about Devin AI about 100 times. Do I need to look at Devin AI? I don't know if it's the same person asking or if there's multiple of you asking about Devin AI. One in the chat if you have any idea what Devin AI is and I should actually look at it. 0 if it's just one guy spamming about Devin. Who the heck is Devin? That's what I'm saying. Am I getting one guide? Who is Devin? I just heard. Wait, are you Devin? You might be Devin. You might be the AI. What about JLabs? I don't know what that is. It just came out. Graduated in 2023, right as the job market crashed. Any advice? I mean, one, unfortunate. But what I would say is there's not that much that you can do about it, right? Like you can't change the market. But what you can do is just like keep applying, keep building up your resume as much as you can through like projects and things like that. And hopefully as things recover, you'll be in a good position. It's unfortunate, but there's like not like anything in particular you can do beyond what you're probably already doing. Do you think there's going to be saturation in the market and demand is way lower than the supply? I don't think so. I don't think it will be anytime soon. The reason being, every aspect of our lives sort of revolves around tech at this point. Companies that do the most non-tech things you can think of have apps and websites, right? Like you go to the grocery store and they're asking you to download their app and to use their website and to do all of these things and to scan their QR codes. These are all things being done by software engineers. So like there's just so much more dev work to be done that I think it only makes sense for the market to continue expanding. Like I understand that there's more people learning how to code and it's becoming easier to learn how to code. Computer science is becoming super popular, but I don't think it's actually catching up to the extent that people think it is, especially because like most of the people who are like learning how to code are like kind of learning how to code, but not to the point of building employable skills. And like the number of people doing that's not as big. Let's see. SQL. That is a thing. I enjoy saying SQL because whenever I say it, it creates a debate in the comments about if it's SQL or SQL. But I think it's way more fun to say SQL because it sounds like squirrel. What do you think about cybersecurity? I mean, it's important. I don't have all that strong of opinions on it just because I don't know that much about cybersecurity. Thoughts on learning SQL, I assume, was the original question. I mean, it's important. I wouldn't like overemphasize it, but I do think all software engineers should have at least some experience with SQL. Like, it is important, and you'll almost certainly encounter it at some point. P equals NP. Now, this is the real question. Does it? Honestly, I feel like we'll never see a proof for it, but I don't think this is the case. It would be cool. It would probably solve tons of it'd cause a lot of problems, but it'd also solve a lot of problems if there's ever a proof for this. But I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think just like realistically, from like a just basic pea-sized brain level, it just like doesn't make sense to me that this would be true. Are you still working in major tech right now or big tech or doing your own thing? Essentially doing my own thing. So I work with Algo Expert and I have a product over there called Frontend Expert where people can prepare for front-end coding interviews. And then I do YouTube and stuff like that. And then I have some other stuff I'm working on. Is it possible to take a remote job as a junior? I mean, probably. There's definitely more of them available for more senior positions, but I'm sure there are some remote junior developer jobs out there. What'd you tell someone who's 13 and wants to do coding? I mean, go try learning the thing, find something that's interesting to you, and go try it and see if you enjoy it, whether that be trying to like make a game or whether that be just trying to go through like some coding courses online or whether it be trying to make like a iPhone app or a website, like whatever's interesting to you, just like go do the thing and see if you enjoy it. If your school has like AP computer science or something like that, take it, see if you like the class. Is self-taught front-end web dev worth it nowadays? I mean, it can be. I do think being a self-taught developer, if your goal is to like actually get a job, is very difficult. It always has been, and it's particularly difficult right now. But it's not impossible. I'm sure there's people in this chat who are self-taught developers. And front-end for that matter too. Is a PhD in computer science worth it for somebody not planning to stay in academia? Probably not. If your goal is not to be in academia, not to be a professor or something like that, the only way I could see a PhD being particularly valuable is if you're trying to do like machine learning or AI work or like something more research heavy, then potentially that will be a good route, right? Like if you get a PhD in like AI and then go do like AI research at like Apple, like sure, that PhD is helping you a lot and you're probably going to make a ton of money doing that. But if you're just getting a PhD in like, I don't know, something random within computer science and you don't have like a specific avenue for that, it's probably just not a great use of your time. But by all means though, like do the things that are interesting to you. Like I wouldn't say don't do a thing just because it's not going to be the absolute best way to maximize earnings in your career, right? Like if it's interesting, it's interesting. But if you're just trying to like have the most successful software engineering career, PhD is probably not the route. Do you have a history in the industry? Which companies have you worked for? Yeah, so I worked at Facebook for a little bit over a year. And then I also interned there twice before that. And then I interned at Lyft as well. And now I work with a company called Algo Expert, which does like coding interview prep. and I make dumb videos on the internet. Thoughts on the future of PHP? I mean, it's going to stick around. It's not going anywhere, but it's also not going to like have some resurgence, I think is my thoughts on it. It exists. I wouldn't choose to use it, but there are plenty of reasons you might have to use it. I'm a full stack developer in India and want to apply for jobs in the US. Any advice? I don't know. Maybe somebody else in the chat has advice for you, but I've never stepped foot in India. I've never applied to an international job, so it's kind of hard for me to give advice on something I've never done. Difference between a Bachelor of Science in Information and computer science. So computer science is the study of like how computers work, essentially the theory of computing, things like that. Information science, informatics, there's different versions of it, and it can mean different things at different universities. But generally speaking, it's going to be a little bit more application heavy and a little bit less theoretical. And it also be a little bit more broad. So you might have less like math and like computer science theory and more stuff like design and project management on top of coding classes and things like that. Come to India, please. maybe one day. I do want to go, actually. I think it'd be really fun. I need an excuse to go. When will she come back? Who is she? And where is she coming back from? You're so cool. Appreciate it. Gonna be addicted to your channel. Well, if it's good for you, I don't upload very much, so there's not that much to be addicted to. When will she come back? I need to have a sound effect for the like Batman, where is she thing. I don't have one though. If only. Let's see. I'm self-taught, started in 92. Dang. Still going. No paper qualifications, but was never able to land a job. Fortunately, my entrepreneurial instinct kicked in, but stability ever elusive. Dang, that's a long time though. See, you can't, I guess, I don't know if this is a point of like inspiration to people or a point of scaring people about having never landing a job, but appreciate you sharing. Do some people remain junior developers their entire career? No, not really. At least at like most of the big tech companies, it's like actually impossible. Most of them like you have to be promoted. Like it's not even like an option. Let's see. That's not what I meant to click on. We'll get back to that one. Any advice to get a software engineering internship? I'm currently pursuing a bachelor's, but it's just computer and information sciences, not SE. I mean, study for coding interviews, make your resume the best document you've ever made in your life. Apply to as many jobs as you can. It's kind of all you can do. All right. I currently work with industrial control systems. My tiny brain doesn't really know what that is. And I'm trying to transition over to software development engineering. Any advice swapping career fields? I'm currently learning Swift. Should I be learning any specific language? So I don't really have like great career switching advice because I've never done it. But as far as what to be learning, I think it depends what you're interested in. If you want to do iOS development, you should be learning Swift. If you want to be doing like web development, you should be learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and like React. If you want to do like backend development, it could be a lot of things. It could be Java, Python. It could be like Rust, C++. But the like specific languages don't matter too much. What matters more is just like the core skill set, and those skills become applicable to pretty much any job. But yeah, Swift specifically is pretty much only used for iOS for the most part. There are other things you can do with it. So if you're not interested in iOS, maybe learn something else. But if iOS is interesting to you, then by all means, learn Swift. When you worked at Facebook, how was work-life balance, meaning time for friends, family, you, etc.? So people ask this a lot with the frame of when you worked at this place. And I will push back on that a little bit because I do think work-life balance is less a product of the company you work for and more a product of the team you're on, the manager you have, and yourself as an individual. So my work-life balance at Facebook was super good. I almost never worked over 40 hours in a week. Most weeks I worked like 30 or 35. Does that mean if you work at Facebook, you'll have the same? Maybe not. I was like grateful to have an incredibly good manager. And I also did a good job myself of one, just being productive during the workday so that I could finish my work early, but also of setting boundaries and saying like, hey, 5 p.m. if I'm not on call, that computer's closed. I'm not answering questions. So yeah, it's a little bit up to the individual, a little bit up to the team and the manager, and maybe a tiny bit like company culture. Yeah, in my particular case, it was pretty good. What is the growth progression like for junior to mid-level software engineers? How does your work change as you grow? So generally speaking, your work with each promotion becomes slightly more like broad and more impactful, if that makes sense. So as a true like junior new grad developer, you're going to be doing a lot of like individual tasks, right? And then as like a mid-level developer, you might have more like full-on projects you're working on. I mean, like a new grad or a junior developer might have projects, but the projects get a little bit bigger, a little bit more scope. Then as a senior developer, you're going to be working on things sort of at like a team-wide level. So you're building projects, but more impactful projects and things that impact other developers on the team oftentimes. And you're sort of becoming a point of contact for other people on the team and just like increasing your scope of influence. Then as you get even further, so you become like staff and principal and all of these things, the scope of influence continues to increase. So you start having influence not just to your team, but maybe to neighboring teams and like your entire org. You start having influence potentially on like lots of areas of engineering at the company, all things like that. And the projects you work on become bigger and bigger over time. So it's kind of just like scope increases and impact increases as you sort of move up the ladder. Did you have a portfolio when you applied to Facebook? Not really. No. Hope you have a good day too, Verd. I think I'm saying that right. On-call nightmare? On-call is always a nightmare. Even like on chill teams, on-call just sucks. I had a really good on-call though. The team I worked on, here's a hack. If you want like virtually no on-call or super easy on-call, work on internal tools, because on-call is the worst when you get pinged at like midnight on a Saturday. But if you're working on internal tools, all of your like customers or whatever, the people using your tools are all employees, meaning they're also working like 9 to 5. So there's nobody to recognize a bug at the middle of the night. And even if there is one, it's probably not that important. So internal tools are the move for not having a bad on-call. Would you rather intern or junior at an enterprise level firm or a small startup? It depends on like what your long-term goals are. But I do think, if you can intern at like a Google, Facebook, Microsoft, et cetera, like a true big tech company, it opens a lot of doors that like a small startup can open. So probably that if you have the opportunity. Recommend a system design book? I don't have a system design book to recommend. So I haven't read any system design books, I don't think. Do you think there's a future in front-end development? Absolutely. It's not going anywhere. Do you feel like knowing UI UX is expected of front end devs now? I want to improve on it, but time is limited. Um, I think it is a good skill to have. It's not like an expectation. The expectation is not that you are a designer. If you can become like mildly fluent in those things, it can be good. But it's not like the most important thing. I used one of your shorts in my college presentation. Gave you credit, of course. Yo, that's kind of cool. What kind of presentation we talking? Like, is this like how many? Like, were we like in a lecture hall watching my shorts? Because that's kind of funny. Like, what class are we talking about? Like, is this a computer science class or like just a random class? Can I become very strong in front end, back end, and data structures and algorithms? Can you? I mean, maybe, but just recognize every extra skill you try to learn is less time you have to spend on the other skills, right? So, like, can I be super good at basketball, football, and soccer? Like, theoretically, maybe, but like, my time becomes split if I start trying to be good at all of those things. And oftentimes, the best thing is to become a like master of one thing and to become mildly proficient in the others rather than trying to like absolutely master everything, because realistically you just become sort of the jack of all trades, master of none type of person if you do that. What keeps you motivated? Honestly, the paycheck and just like building cool stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it. I've never really had to like think about it too much because I don't know. Like personally, in my case, motivation's never been a huge issue. Can I get a shout out? Shout out Ashley. I feel relieved I don't have a portfolio, yet I got advice to always have a coding portfolio when I apply to software engineering positions. I mean, like, if you have one, great, but I don't think it's like a thing you have to have. I think they're a little bit, especially for like big tech companies, like they ain't looking at that. They're looking at your resume and it's like either throwing it in the trash or if you like win the lottery, they're giving you an interview. Like they ain't going that deep. It probably matters a lot more if you're applying to like startups and things like that. If you didn't have a portfolio when applying to Facebook, how'd you get a job there? So I don't know. I went to a career fair. I talked to the guy. The guy liked me. He gave me an interview. I think I had you can have a good resume without like some portfolio for them to look at. Like I had a couple projects like briefly mentioned on my resume. They were like hackathon projects though. And then I had the only other like relevant job I had is I was a teaching assistant. Yo, go Spurs, but can we not spam the chat talking about the Spurs? Do you think it's okay to pursue a software engineering degree after finishing a software engineering boot camp? My career coach at the camp said most people don't after camp. I know I need to keep learning. I mean, can you? Sure. Does it mean that now that boot camp became virtually a waste of time? Honestly, kind of. So is it okay? Sure. If that's interesting to you, by all means do it. Do I think it's necessary? Probably not, but it maybe depends on the boot camp and like your own like proficiency level at this point. Go to school online and the presentation was on hardware. Interesting. Okay. I wish I could see the presentation. I'm very curious, but that's cool. What helps you get into a flow state? I don't know. I think the most part being like uninterrupted and being able to just like sit down and work. One thing I used to do when I was at Facebook was I would put meetings on my calendar that were just fake meetings. So I'd have like 5 hours of meetings one day, but I was the only person at the meeting, and that just meant nobody could interrupt me. And I think that helped a lot. I do not understand how these vertical live streams work. How It's like once every 15 minutes, they like throw an influx of random viewers in, and then like 10% of them stick. So if you're one of those people, make sure to subscribe. Very nice stream. Appreciate it. Do you have to become a JavaScript king or wizard to become a senior developer? No. I think one misconception a lot of people have is that senior developers are all the best coders. And that's not really the case. They're the best at having the most scope and impact with their work, but that doesn't necessarily equate to like they're the absolute best coders in the world. Oftentimes they do the least coding anyways. So it's more about just like increasing scope and having more impact than it is like becoming the best programmer of all time. Those things kind of come naturally. Like you, of course, the more time you spend, you get better and better at coding. But it's not like they're inherently better programmers. Full stack software engineering, worth doing. Absolutely. If it's interesting to you. If it's not interesting to you and you're like just trying to chase the bag, maybe not the right move. I want to start my coding journey. Where and with which language should I start? From India. Shout out India. It just depends on what you're interested in. If you want to do like web development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then like React after that. If you want to do stuff with data, Python. If you want to do mobile development, it could be like iOS development with Swift or Kotlin for Android, or it could be like Dart and Flutter for like doing both at once, or you could do like JavaScript with React Native for sort of the same thing. It just depends on what you're interested in. If you want to do like backend development, it could be like Python, Java, Rust, C++, like tons of languages there. Just whatever is interesting to you. What matters more is building up the core skills rather than like over indexing on particular languages. Hey, I just got a job at Meta. What advice do you have for working there? Hold on. I have a button for this. Applause. I don't know if y'all, oh wait, I don't think y'all can even hear that. Hold on. Applause. Yay. All right. I'm turning the applause off. I've been wanting to use that for so long, but just got a job at Meta. Advice for working there. Be very intentional about things you do and be very upfront with your manager about what your goals are and what their goals are for you, and make sure those things are aligned, and make sure that you are like always working towards the team-wide goals and like building impact, as they say. Like that's sort of what everything there revolves around. Yeah, I don't have like too much Meta specific advice. Enjoy it. It's a great place to work. First thing you need to do when you get on Workplace, which is like kind of what they use for like Slack type of thing, join the Dogs at Facebook or Dogs at Meta group. It's great. That's the thing I miss most about Meta is the daily photos of people's dogs. That's the best part of working at like a giant tech company is the more people who work at the tech company, the more dog photos you can get. All right, let's find some more questions. Chat's moving too quick to do every single one of them, but I appreciate all of the questions. And also, for all the new people here, do make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's find some good questions in here. Shout out Joe from Ghana in West Africa. Yo, where are people from? Because the concept that I'm just like sitting here in my office and there's somebody in Ghana like watching this is wild to me. I've learned web development and I got the opportunity to work as a ServiceNow portal developer. Should I go for that or wait for a web development job? I don't know. I don't really know much about ServiceNow. But it also depends on like your individual situation. Like there's nothing wrong with going and doing that thing for like 6 months and then finding a web development job and jumping ship. But also if you feel like there's a good chance of you finding that job you want more soon, then do that. But like, it kind of depends on your situation, right? Like how bad do you need a job right now? How close is that job to doing something you enjoy? Things like that. Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, Egypt, Midwest USA, India, Mars. Love that. Let's see. How long have you been in software engineering? So I graduated from college in 2020. So California. I graduated college in 2020. So like 4-ish years, like full time. And a while before that, just like doing stuff on the side and in college and all that. Can software engineers afford a luxury car? I mean, if you want, it depends on your definition of afford, right? Like, and also like where you're a software engineer. If you're a software engineer at like Google and you're 5 years into your career in the United States, like in California, you're probably making north of $300,000 a year. Can you, at that point, afford a $150,000 car? I mean, like maybe, like if you have no kids and like low other expenses, like technically, can you afford it? Probably. Should you afford it? Probably not, but not financial advice, but let's stop spamming about cars now. Is having a lot of GitHub repositories worth it? I mean, I wouldn't just like spam a bunch of extra GitHub repositories for no reason. Having projects is worth it, but it's not so much about the quantity as much as the quality. Like, I don't think it matters having more than a few if they're good, high quality projects, but you don't need like 1,000 GitHub repositories. It doesn't really matter. Are you invested in crypto? Just Bitcoin and Ethereum. I used to like play around with it a long time ago in like 2017. I tried to build like a crypto trading bot, and like I thought I was a genius. I was like, I am king of of code. My trading bot, it's gonna make so much money. It lost money. It was just throwing away money. It was giving money to everybody but me. Horrible idea. Don't recommend. What advice would you give to recent graduates and those transitioning to the field who are experiencing imposter syndrome? So I think it's one of those things that unfortunately happens to most people. It's one of those things that there's not a whole lot you can do about it beyond just like continuing on and like doing more and more things. And as you do more and more things, you start getting people around you recognizing the things you're doing is good, right? Like you get promotions, you get good feedback, you build successful products. And as you do those things, it becomes so illogical to think, oh, I'm such an imposter, that at that point, I think tends to start going away for a lot of people. But also just like look around you and recognize that nobody around you knows nearly as much as you think they do. And nobody around you expects you to know nearly as much as you think they expect you to know. Yeah. Do we need to practice elite code to get a job? I mean, for most software engineering jobs these days, do need to practice for data structures and algorithms interviews. What platform you do that on specifically, I guess, is up to you. RSUs are just restricted stock units. So it's just like pay, but instead of paying you in cash, companies pay you in stocks. What's a good university for software engineering, or what do you look for? You mean like if I'm hiring somebody? I don't really care what university you went to, unless you went to like Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, Georgia Tech, Texas, Washington, Michigan. I'm probably leaving a few out. Carnegie Mellon. Unless you go to like one of the super good computer science schools, nobody really cares where you went to school, honestly. Advice for learning on sites such as W3 schools versus YouTube. Well, W3 schools specifically, I would basically not use because a lot of their information is very outdated. But aside from that, I would say learn from as many sources as possible. Learn from YouTube, learn from courses, learn from MDN or whatever other websites. And sort of the more different places you learn from, I think the more things you learn and the better you retain that information. Can you comment on the impact of AI on software developers? Yeah, I've talked about this a couple times, but generally speaking, it's just making software development easier. Does that mean that there's less software development to be done? No, it just means it's easier. In the same way that when we went from using punch cards and Fortran to using C++ and then eventually to using things like Python and JavaScript, software development got easier. Did that result in less jobs? No, it actually resulted in more jobs, which is counterintuitive. But why does that happen? It happens because as software development gets easier, it means that you can build software for less money because it takes less people to build one thing. And when it takes less people to build one thing, there are more things that become financially viable. And thus, there's actually more software to be built, even if that software is being built more efficiently. And the result so far with every new layer of abstraction we've added has been that there's actually been more jobs, not less. And I would expect AI to be very similar. It's just making software development easier. And as a result, we're going to be able to build software easier and build more software that's actually viable financially. And I think that's actually going to result in more jobs, not less. But at the same time, I can't predict the future. So we'll see what happens. Maybe this is the one. What do you think about Scrimba? I have no idea what that is. Can I get into software engineering with a bachelor's in data science? Probably. If you've got the skills. Do you think using Firebase as a backend for a mobile app is safe for a new startup? Absolutely. One thing I think a lot of people, when they're building startups, overemphasize on is the tech stack and like using the most advanced tech and having all this custom stuff. And like, it doesn't matter. Just use the things that are easiest to build with that you can get that product out the fastest in a reliable way. And then 2 years down the line, if your startup has scaled to 10 million users, maybe you need to leave Firebase. Maybe it's time to graduate and build something on your own. Fine. At that point, go make that investment. But at the beginning, build products, not infrastructure. And if Firebase is going to be the quickest way to just get the thing running, use Firebase. Scrimba is a platform to learn frontend from Norway. Yeah, I have no idea what it is, so I have no opinion on it. But generally, I try to avoid giving opinions on like learning platforms and courses and things, unless I think they're just like objectively scams or really bad. I usually don't give opinions on them just because like, I don't know, I haven't gone through all of them. So like, it's hard for me too. And I'm sort of biased in having my own products. So I try to avoid commenting on other people's products. If you're looking to hire a strong front-end engineer, what are the skills you'd be looking for in candidates? I would say a strong, like fundamental understanding of JavaScript and the web and HTML, CSS, all of those things. Not so much like a deep understanding of React or whatever. Like that's cool if they have it, but it's not as important to me. I would care about communication skills. I would see it as a major plus if they had design skills, but I wouldn't see it as like a necessity. I don't know, stuff like that. I don't think there's anything like super unique to front end that I'd be looking for, but I also haven't done that much hiring. So I might just not have a good answer for that because I haven't done it. Advice for getting into big companies like Rockstar. That's an odd choice of big. Please stop spamming about Yelp. I don't even know what you're asking. But if I see one more Yelp, you're going to get banned. I don't know what your question is. Any advice on getting into big companies like Rockstar? I don't think getting into big companies is particularly different than getting into any other company. Like work on your resume, make it the best document you've ever made in your life. Get good at coding interviews, apply. I'm curious why Rockstar in particular was the big company, but yeah, I don't think it's anything unique to big companies versus small companies. Maybe big companies are a little bit more overemphasizing like the data structures and algorithms interviews, where small companies might care a little bit more about like you as a person and all that type of stuff. But I want to learn JavaScript, but I'm really bad at it. Any advice? I was really bad at it at one point. Anybody else who's good at JavaScript was really bad at it at one point? Pick a skill that you're good at. You were probably really bad at it at one point. Just got to keep doing it. But yeah, I don't have like any like JavaScript specific advice for that beyond just like practice makes perfect. You'll get better at it. Hey, got an interview at Mercedes in Germany for an apprenticeship in software development next Wednesday. I'm very excited. Congrats. Good luck. I'm going to graduate in 2 months with a computer science degree. Tech jobs have been down for the last 2 years. Do you think more tech job positions will be available this year? I mean, I can't predict the future. I do think things are recovering. Like if you look at the number of open tech jobs, it has been increasing. Granted, much slower than it decreased, but it is increasing. So hopefully. Yo, M6V12, I have no idea what you're asking, but please stop spamming the same question, or at least rephrase it if you actually have a question, because I don't know what you mean about Yelp, but I'm going to ban you in a minute. I've never actually banned somebody on YouTube. I don't even know how to do it, so I'd have to go figure out how to ban you just because of how frustrated I am seeing Yelp every time I look at my chat. Are you happy with your job? I am, yeah. I really enjoy what I do. I'm about to graduate and got a low-paying job, but I want to learn a technology during that job that secures my future. Can you suggest a technology to learn, like blockchain or AI? I think it just depends on what you're interested in. I would say figure out what thing it is that you want to be doing and go learn that thing. What specific thing that is, like, I can't tell you because I don't know anything beyond based on your username. It sounds like you like chess. So I don't know enough about you to like have any other recommendation. Just find stuff that you're interested in. I'm asking about working on a project like Yelp, a business directory. I don't know what you're asking. What do you mean asking what? What is the question? Yelp is a thing you can work on a business directory if you want. I don't know what your question is. Yelp is going to be a meme in the live streams forever now. See, Ronald knows what's up. The secret to my heart is a spam front-end expert. It's facts. Can I get your email or LinkedIn? Yeah, my LinkedIn is on my my channel. So you're welcome to connect with me there, follow or whatever. While you're on my channel though, looking for that LinkedIn, you should hit the subscribe button. It's right next to it. So I mean, like, it's there. If it's there, you might as well click it, you know. Is it a good idea? I don't know. Maybe if it's interesting to you. Is it a good choice to learn AI in a master's degree? If it's interesting to you, sure. What do you think about Harvard's courses like CS50? I think they're great. Yeah, I think they're a great way to get like an introduction to computer science and to do it from an incredible university for free. Yeah, I think they're great. I do think some people use them in ways they shouldn't be used. Like if your goal is just to learn how to code, like CS50 is not it. CS50 is going to give you a foundation of computer science, and like it'll teach you a little bit of coding. But if your goal is that, right, like to get that foundation of computer science, it's great. Whether it be that you are doing computer science at another university and you just don't think the classes are as good, so you can use CS50 to sort of supplement that. Or if you're deciding like, hey, maybe I want to go into this field, you can use CS50 before you make that decision for yourself and make that leap. Or if like you're just interested in it and you're trying to self-teach or whatever it might be, you can use it for that too. Yeah, so I think it's awesome. The more free stuff online, the better, right? Average salary per year of a software engineer in the US, it varies a ton, right? Because the US is huge. The difference between California and Montana is like astronomical, right? Like they're just very different places. In the big tech, and it also matters a lot, like, are you working at Google or are you working at a small startup? Right? Like a new grad at Google, Facebook, etc., can easily make like 150 to 200,000 a year. But at a software engineer at a bank in Montana, even someone more senior might be making less than that, right? Overall, the like total average across the country is probably like 110, 120 or something, but I have no idea. I'm completely guessing. And there's going to be tons of outliers way on the top who are making $500,000 plus a year. And then there's also going to be outliers at the bottom who are making 30, 40 grand a year at jobs that are probably dramatically underpaying them. How long did it take to get your first job after you graduated? So I did an internship, or I did 2 internships at Facebook while I was in college, and I just had a return offer. So when I graduated, I already had a job. So 0 days, I guess. Is relying on heavily on AI like GPT for everyday coding beneficial or detrimental for a junior to mid-level developer? That's a good question. I think it depends on what you're relying on it for. If you're using it to not have to do the things you know how to do but are going to waste you a lot of time, great. If you're using it as a supplement for just not knowing things, it might be detrimental, but it depends on how you're using it, right? Like if you use it like Stack Overflow in the sense of, I'm just going to use this as a way to look up how to do something, it's going to teach me and I'm going to go do the thing, great. If you're using it in the sense of, I'm going to ask it to do the thing for me, you are no longer learning how to fish, you're buying a fish at the supermarket or whatever. What's the saying? I don't think that's the saying, but you get the point. If you use it with like a growth mindset of, I'm going to use it as a way to learn, that's great. If you're using it to just do your work for you, probably not as great. I'm good in web development. What should I learn next? Software development, game development, ML, AI. Actually, I don't want to be a web developer. Figure out what it is you actually want to do and learn that, right? Like you've now realized that learning a thing just to learn a thing, if it's not interesting to you, is probably not the right route. So figure out what the thing is that is interesting to you and learn that instead. And welcome into a bunch of new people. I don't understand how YouTube works at all, but it just spams us with new people every now and then. Oh, wait. Anyone know if the live is recorded? If anyone can let me know, is that live recorded or is it live? I don't welcome to new people. Subscribe while you're here, even if you're about to scroll past. If you could hit the little subscribe button first, that'd be cool. That's not the one I meant to click on, but I guess we're doing it anyways. It's funny when the chat moves so fast, it's hard for me to select one. Just like all the IT support and cloud computing certifications out there, are there any good web developer certifications for beginners? So the one thing I always say about certifications, don't go like trying to play Pokemon with them and catch them all. It is not worth it. The point of certifications is to learn a thing. It is to go through a program that teaches you a thing and to build a new skill and to use that skill to do stuff. If you're doing a certification just to get a piece of paper that says I'm certified and knowing absolutely nothing, it is a waste of your time and there's no point to doing that. So are there good certification programs that teach you good things? Sure. Are there certifications I would recommend for the purpose of getting your certification? Absolutely not. I think it's a waste of time. Ashley, can I get a shout out? I am a sub. I already gave you a shout out. We did this like an hour ago, Ashley. All junior developer interviews have React and JavaScript lead code questions or similar. Our portfolio isn't enough. Pretty much any developer interview is going to have some kind of coding portion to it. Yes. I mean, there might be like some very small startups or something that won't, but they have to vet that you actually have the skill set to do the job. And they're going to do that one way or another. It might not be specifically one of these things, but they will find a way to vet that you actually have the skill set. Is Google Go worth learning? You mean like the Go programming language? It can be. It's useful. Is C still relevant? Yeah, it's going to be relevant forever. Thoughts on Devin AI? Why are we talking about Devin again? People keep asking about Devin. I don't know who Devin is. Devin has returned, but I have no thoughts on it. I did not know what it was until people kept asking about it like an hour ago. C# or C++, they're just different. Both useful for different things. Are you still at Facebook? No, I left Facebook like 2 years ago. Longer than that, I think. It's been a while. I left Facebook September 8th, I think, of like 2021, something like that. Officer Jeremy, what are we talking about? I've been lazy for a month, getting a little rest after a rough year studying with no stop. I feel bad. It usually happens. I mean, you're just kind of describing burnout. Like it's a thing. It's all right. We move on and keep chugging along at whatever it is you're trying to do. What are you working on? I'm working on some stuff I can't talk about too much yet. And then my main focus, honestly, right now is content. Projects for security? I don't know. I'm not like a security person really, so it's hard for me to answer that. Raul, I don't know that I am the right person to answer that, so I'm going to skip over that one, but maybe someone in the chat can answer it for you that's more qualified than I am. Is PHP relevant today? Unfortunately, yes. It's not as relevant as it once was, but it's still around. It's going to be around for a long time. This is fun. Explain iteration as if you're speaking to a first grader. Okay. So we want to do a thing, right? What is the thing we want to do? We have a jar of Skittles, and we want to pick up a Skittle and eat it, right? So we pick it up and we eat it. But now we want to like program our Skittle eating robot to not just pick up the Skittle and eat it, to then pick up the next Skittle and eat it. And to do this for the whole jar, because Skittles are great. So why would we stop eating Skittles? But we don't want to just have to program this for every single Skittle. We don't even know how many Skittles there are. And it's going to take us forever to go Skittle by Skittle and write code for all of those things. So instead, we write code to say, hey, go until we're out of Skittles. And each time, pick up the next Skittle and eat it. That's iteration. I hope that helped for all the first graders. Why are we talking about Devin AI again? What is up with Devin? Is AI a threat to new software engineering students? I don't think so. I think it's much more of a resource for software engineering students. No, I don't really have websites I can recommend. I'm studying for a software engineering diploma from Harberton. I don't know if I'm saying that right. By ALX Africa. Are you in Africa? That's dope. Where's everybody from? Put some locations in the chat. Is it good or should I be a front end or back end engineer market wise? How to gain energy back when you lose it? I don't really know how to answer this. Is it because I don't know what this program is you're doing? And as far as like, should you do front end, back end, or something else? I don't know. You should do the thing that's interesting to you. Market wise, I don't know. I especially don't know the market in Africa, but even here, like there's front end jobs, there's back end jobs, there's full stack jobs, there's lots of different things. And I don't think one necessarily makes you like way more marketable than another. Maybe to some degree they do, but just like do the stuff that's interesting to you is generally my advice. Miami, West Coast, India, Dubai. That's dope. Seattle. Hey, Seattle, let's go. Devin AI is in Seattle. Wisconsin. Boston. What's the best React or Angular in the future? So I'm not going to go like full on Angular hating. Angular's fine. If you want to use Angular, by all means, use Angular. But objectively speaking, there are probably twice as many jobs that use React. So if you're just trying to build like marketable skills, there's probably twice as many of them using React. And that differential is probably growing more than it is shrinking. So, and I think it's just easier to learn and easier to use. Israel, Nigeria, Kara, what is this one? I feel like an idiot, but I don't even know where that is. Kerala? Am I saying that right? I'll be honest, I've never heard of that place. Am I an idiot? Probably. Is SQL a requisite for front-end web developers? I've been searching and I found a lot of job offers like this. I wouldn't say it's a requisite, but I would say most developers in any, that's a place in India. Okay, I feel like less of an idiot for not knowing, like I thought it was a country when you said it like that, but I've never been to India, so I'm okay with not knowing exactly where that is. It's an Indian state. Okay, cool. So SQL, important. I think all software developers eventually should learn it, and you will probably use it at some point. Can you get a job without it? Absolutely. And honestly, you can kind of lie a little bit and say you know it more than you do, because I've never been asked a question about SQL in my life, and it's been on my resume for every job I've ever applied to. If you're not applying to like data jobs, they're probably not going to ask you about it. The ultimate debate. Bigger than tabs versus spaces. Do you say SQL or SQL? Team SQL. No, I don't think SQL is all that hard to learn, to be honest. At least at like a basic level, to be able to like query a database or like add something to it. I was scrolling shorts and you popped up. Hey, well, welcome, Bagel Queen. I hope you are enjoying. And for those of you who are scrolling shorts and are just appearing, as you're scrolling, there is a subscribe button somewhere up here. I don't know where it is. I don't know how shorts work. It's up there somewhere. I'd recommend pressing it, you know? How to practice for coding interviews. Do a lot of problems, but do them with intentionality. So do them in the way you're going to be doing them in actual coding interviews, which is speaking out loud, which is awkward when you're the only one in the room doing it by yourself. But speak out loud, articulate your thought process, make sure you are thinking through all of the different options and ways to approach a problem and the trade-offs between those different approaches. And then when you can't solve a problem, don't just copy in some solution from YouTube or whatever. Go find the solution and make sure you understand the solution, and then come back a few days later and then solve the problem again to make sure you actually retained that information. Because ultimately the goal is not to get the number as high as possible of how many problems you've solved. It's to actually develop the skill, which comes from retaining information, not from just passing tests on some website. Are you using AI for your job? Not much, a little bit. I love AI stuff, but I don't use it a ton, like on the work front these days. What about Git? My Git level is pretty basic. Should I be worried about it? In the sense of getting a job, no. Getting a job. See the pun? We're so punny in here. In terms of getting a job, no. Like, people aren't going to ask you about it in an interview. At least they probably won't. But in terms of doing the job, yeah, you should like be able to make a branch, add, commit, push, merge, resolve merge conflicts. That's about it. Anything else, like, you can just Google it. How many years of experience do you have? I graduated in 2020, so like 4-ish of like full-time work. If you just mean like years programming, like a decade-ish, depending on what you count as starting. Do you have any tips for a high schooler looking to upskill? I don't know how I feel about the term upskill. How do we feel about upskill as a term? Can we remove that from the dictionary? Is it in the dictionary? I feel like I never heard this term until like the last few years. Like, I don't know if like TikTokers have been like promoting it as a term. But anyways, looking to upskill. I've been doing hackathons and data science projects, but I'm not sure about the next steps to take. Well, first, I just recognize that you are miles ahead of 99.9% of high schoolers. So don't over stress about anything. But ultimately, I would say just like do different stuff like you're doing and figure out what things are interesting to you and build stuff. And as you'll be way ahead of the game if you're leaving high school and already having an idea of like what's interesting to you, whether that brings you the route of like going and getting a computer science degree or doing something completely different. Just like the more things you do now, the better suited you'll be to understand like what's interesting to you down the line, which I think is important. And also like, don't overstress. You're in high school. Take life one step at a time. I love code. I feel you on that one. Code's great. Do you enjoy the work? I do. I enjoy my work a lot. I like all these dashes. It makes this look so dramatic. Feeling stuck in UI dev after 10 years now. Any idea how to grow? Learn new skills, apply to new jobs elsewhere. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to answer that, but I guess you kind of have two options: to grow internally where you're at, which is sort of through conversations with management and figuring out like, hey, what's the steps to increase my scope, to move to new things, whatever it might be for you, or to look externally and find something else that's more fulfilling to you or that's going to help you achieve your goals more. Can I learn Python and Java as a beginner in the same time? Is it possible? Possible, yes. Would I recommend it? No, not really. It's like saying, can I learn Spanish and French at the same time? Probably. Should you? Probably not. It's probably easier to just do one thing at a time. Maybe that's not a great analogy. That's probably harder to do than Java and Python, but it's probably better to just do one thing at a time. Thanks for answering all three of my questions. Appreciate it. Subscribed. See, Paul here has the right idea with subscribing. Highly recommend you follow Paul's lead. For the rest of you, 59 people. 58 if we're counting Paul. Favorite food? Ooh, I don't know. I had a crazy craving for like a week for pizza recently, but I wouldn't say pizza is my favorite food. I just was craving it. If I can just go with like anything, I might go with like, I think a hot dessert with vanilla ice cream on top, like one of those like skillet cookies with like vanilla ice cream on top, or like a hot like molten chocolate cake brownie thing with like vanilla ice cream on top. If I'm not allowed to go with a dessert, I'd probably go with like a steak or something. I don't know. Or French toast, low key one of my favorite foods. Matt, watching your content for a year, good advice as always. Appreciate it, Jose. So many rumors of AI will replace software engineers in the future. I would say there's not these rumors. There are simply people who are uninformed who are saying this. I've yet to meet a software engineer or anybody who's like deeply knowledgeable of the space who truly has this opinion beyond maybe somebody who's incredibly biased in their opinions, such as like the NVIDIA CEO. But I would even argue he's probably not like the most knowledgeable of the space. Like he's an electrical engineer, but more than that, he's a business person. But like AI is not replacing software engineers anytime soon. It is making software engineering more efficient and easier to learn, though, which is cool. What do software engineers do? We sleep in and then we play ping pong, and then usually we order boba, and then sometimes there's some work in there. Build software, build apps, websites. That's probably the easiest way to put it. Apps and websites and any other piece of software tech. Is skipping college worth it? So I'm not on team like college is a scam. I know some people are all about that. But I'm also not on team everybody needs to go to college. I think it depends on the individual. If you want to be a software engineer and you have the ability to go get a 4-year computer science degree, I would probably do it. I think for most people, that sets them up for the most long-term success in the industry. Are there other paths? Yes. You can go to a coding bootcamp or try to self-teach, and those are legitimate paths that can work. If you're not trying to do software engineering, then I think it depends on what it is you're trying to do. If you don't know what you want to do and you're just like, I'm going to college because I know that's like the next step type of thing, I'm kind of on the fence about it. If you don't have to pay for it, whether it be through scholarships or your parents paying for it, then I'm kind of all about it. Just go and explore different areas. If going is going to mean $100,000 of debt and still not knowing what you want to do, I probably would not take out $100,000 of debt to do that personally. I have no idea what this AI tool by Cognition is, but can we stop spamming that? I don't really know how to answer the question. So, are all computer science courses created equal? No. Is it possible that some classes could shortchange you on education in the field? I mean, do you mean like different universities, or do you mean classes within the same university? Are some universities better than others? Yeah. Do they largely teach the same things? Also, yes. But of course, some are better than others. And like within the same university, obviously some classes are better than other classes, and some are going to be more applicable to you and some will be more applicable to somebody else, right? All right, I'll answer a couple more questions. Then we're going to finally end this. Been live for almost 2 hours. This is the longest live I think I've ever done. Are you looking forward to add more content or topics to Frontend Expert? I already am a member of it and loving it. Thanks a lot for your content there. Hey, first of all, I'm glad you enjoy Frontend Expert. To answer your question, like honestly though, I don't know. I don't know if we will add anything more. Maybe eventually we will. In the short term, I don't think we will, just because the point of the product is for front-end interview prep, and oversaturating that product a bunch with a bunch of things that aren't front-end interview prep, and a bunch of things that aren't necessary for front-end interviews is not something that makes sense, I think. So like if the product at some point becomes like outdated, I would want to fix that, right? But right now I think the content of it's relevant, and I don't think it's like any like gaping missing material. So in the short term, to be honest, there's probably nothing new coming anytime soon. Insight into embedded or kernel development? I have no idea. Never done either. I also don't know how to get a job in India, so can't really answer that one. Is it mandatory to learn computer science before coding? No. Computer science or coding is a tool used by computer scientists, but it's not a tool unique to computer science. It's like, do you need, I don't have a good analogy. Do you need to learn civil engineering before you can build a table? No. The construction skills are used by civil engineers and used for building a table, but you don't need one for the other. Well, you need one in one way you do, and the other you don't, if that makes sense. Why are IDEs so annoying to set up? That's a good question. I don't know. There's no greater pain than getting a new computer and like you have to find all the IDE settings again to like get it back to how it was. I don't know what math-related jobs means, but let's stop spamming that. How to build logic? I also don't know what that means. How long should one stick to a stack before moving to the next one? Move to the next one when you need something new. It's not about like playing Pokemon and catching them all. It's just like learn stuff when you need it. Like there are so many frameworks and libraries and everything else out there and languages. I don't know most of them. I'll never know most of them because I'll never have a need for most of them. If I have a need for them, I'll go learn them. But until I do, I'm not going to learn them. All right, with that said, I think that's going to be the last question for today. Appreciate you all chatting, all 45 of you. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and like the stream also. I guess it doesn't really matter if you like it anymore because I'm about to end it. But if you can, like it, subscribe. YouTube video is going to be out in 8 hours, so 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, or if you're in like India, it's probably like 6 or 7 p.m. I think. Yeah, and hopefully we can start doing these more. This was fun. So yeah, have a good rest of your night, morning, wherever you are.